times are tough for people who open up their wallet and have too much money in them and want to buy Spydercos. Spyderco have minimized their high-end fancy range for now. It is coming back. But really, the Schleich Bowie, the Nirvana, the Southern Flipper, the 350 MSRP plus Spydercos have been reducing in numbers. Remaining though, to save the day, is the Gale Bradley Advocate. This knife was sent to me by Nick Shabazz. I've used it in various applications, and I've used it quite extensively for the last 3 months. I think I can provide a pretty rounded review on it. So we're going to take it down to the tabletop, and we're going to talk about the Advocate and the virtues and the things you need to know about this very expensive knife. So the Advocate is a mid-sized everyday carry knife. It is about comparable with, say, a paramilitary 2 for size. So I'll show some knives with it now on the screen, and you'll see it's definitely hitting that sort of what is commonly regarded as a bit of an EDC sweet spot. In terms of the dimensions of the knife, so the overall length of the thing is 8.04 inches. That's 204 millimeters from here to here. The blade is 3.5 inches in total, but the cutting edge is about 3.25. It is on titanium handles. The blade thickness, is 3 millimeters, but obviously it tapers down to a finer point. The appearance of this titanium is just from an orange peel kind of etching. It's like a technique they do to the titanium just to make it look nice. It doesn't particularly offer any extra grip or anything like that. The blade steel is CPM M4, which I think they run at about 64 Rockwell. So I think it's a pretty hard M4 steel, but then it's hard to always figure out what Spyderco are running their Rockwells at. But anyway, this is a very well-performing steel. It's the CQI, Constant Quality Improvement version of the knife. The initial Advocates had a thinner washer that wore a track in it on the ball bearing pivot and made the knife action get a bit crunchy. So that was met with general upset from the knife community because, fair enough, you're spending this amount of money on a knife, you do sort of want everything to be in spec. Because, titanium, M4 is not a super expensive steel. Companies are putting these materials together for less, so you're paying a bit for designer premium and for Spyderco premium, and for a few little extra bits of tasteful fit and finish and whatnot. So, in my opinion, it's fair, and this is why this review's been a bit longer in the making, it's fair to be harder on more expensive knives, because really when knives like the, American Lawman are out for, about $100 US or, 170 Australian dollars that do all of your knife jobs, practically speaking, all the extra stuff is really just kind of talking about finery and niceness. So I think it's perfectly hard for people to say, that's too gritty, send it back and redo it. So there we go. But this is the version that got redone, and this is a lovely knife. This is one of the nicer Spydercos I've had, one of the nicer knives I've had. So what do we need to know? Well, the blade, we'll start with the blade because that's obviously the part that I am most enamored with in most knives, because this one's made of M4 steel, and M4 steel is one of my favorites in terms of its performance. This isn't a casual knife user's steel because you need to take somewhat good care of it. It's a kind of steel that no matter what you do with it, it'll probably patina. So I have taken care of this knife still. I used the EDCI stuff on it and all that good, but then you use it and it, gradually does get just markings and rough like cloudiness or discolorations where various acids and various products maybe sit on it for even slightly too long. It's one of those steels that if you take care of it, it'll kind of just look worn in, but if you neglect it, it'll actually rust. So, and I've left my Mantra, which is this knife here, I've left this out for too long without having it oiled, well, my previous Mantra it was, and that has actually developed light surface rust on it just from sitting in my room. So depending on the treatment, I think, and just a bit of luck and a bit of everything, M4 can sometimes be a bit of a high maintenance steel. So that's something to know. This probably isn't the knife to get for like your dad or something. I can see, my dad's not that into knives. I might get him a really nice one so it can be a single nice knife. Going just on the M4, I'd probably not choose this one. I'd probably choose something more like the like a nice Kaiser knife in S35VN, or a Zero Tolerance in S35VN, or a Spyderco in CTS XHP, or something like a nice, like a chaparral with titanium handle. Something like that would probably do better if you're just getting a knife. I want to get a really nice sort of single knife for someone who's not that into it, because they'll probably just lose interest and stop taking care of it, and it will rust. There you go. M4, that's the negatives of it. Positives though, well, I've sharpened this edge to 18 degrees per side and put a 1500 grit finish on it using the KME extra fine stone. And I did my edge retention test, which I will now roll in. Ooh. 700 passes from the Spyderco Advocate, 1500 grit finish at 18 degrees per side. So 700 is a very, very positive number. One of the best results I've had from M4. And the edge is even like a degree thicker per side than what I usually do, which is 17. I just kept it a bit lower because the blade's just not as tall, and I just didn't want one of those sort of really light, wide edges like I've done on some of my other knives. I just wanted to look pretty nice as well. So, but it's certainly got the cutting performance for sure. That's very much super steel, high-speed steel performance. And the good thing about M4 is it's a fairly tough steel as well. So it's a Blade Sports steel. Gail Bradley, the designer of this knife, he's a Blade Sports bro, and you know, M4 is often those big choppers they use that they need to be able to do impact tasks with, but then, you know, cut a toilet roll in half. It's a steel that they choose to do those tasks with. So I like it. The community seems to like it. Just not one for casuals, that's all. Not one for noobs, maybe. Sharpening difficulty, it's up there. It's, you know, it's definitely different to, say, your S35VNs and things like that, but any angled system will still make, you know, easy work of it. And I'm not particularly skilled, but I've managed to keep everything pretty straight and pretty nice looking. So yeah, I'm liking the M4 steel. It's yeah, one of the better performers out there, even still. The handle is ergonomic and comfortable. I have enjoyed using it and carrying it and holding it, and, you know, obviously doing that really long rope cut test that reveals the weaknesses of most handles. And this one, I did find that just this lock interface area here is just a little bit complex for really prolonged cutting, but that's ridiculous prolonged cutting that probably no one's going to be doing with this knife. If you're after something that you need to do ridiculous prolonged cutting with, I'd suggest something with, and you need a folding knife, I'd suggest something with a handle like this, just a little bit bigger, a little bit more to hold on to, less nooks and crannies to get your hand stuck in. The webbing of your finger sits nicely in a compression lock, whereas sometimes these can sort of, if you wrap your finger around, these can give you a bit of a, you know, well, you see me here, just a little bit of a worn out index finger there, so that's probably what I'd suggest. But in terms of EDC carry, or even just regular use, it's absolutely fine. Just only when I hyperextended the knife to like ridiculous cutting did I notice some ergonomic shortfalls, but really most knives do have those when I do my knife testing. Back to the lock face. So yeah, if I covered all the goods, yes, the ergonomics are good. The blade is really nicely done. The blade is ground really, really well as well. Good balance between being pretty thin behind the edge to slice and also being relatively stout and tough. The tip's nice and stout. It's got like a swedging effect down to it. So all points sort of ending just here at the tip. Nice tip, not super, you know, not super stabby, but, you know, definitely proud and doing its thing without a worry. Yeah, the lovely straight edge I really enjoy. I prefer generally a bit less belly on my knives. I like to have a little bit of a, yeah, this is pretty much perfect for me. Frankly, that's what I'll say. This is pretty much perfect. I am always keen on, from a sharpening perspective, keeping the nice bit of flat. This is about perfect to easily sharpen with a KME. This blade shape, put your clamps just there and you can get it going really well. There's no choil, so to speak, but the plunge and the cutoff here is just right for most angled systems to just get in there without hacking too far away at this grind here, so not too bad at all. But yeah, I always do like the, I like when they go the extra mile and put in like maybe this knife has one. yeah, put in like a little cutting choy. I do enjoy those, and I think most people who sharpen frequently do enjoy them, but there you go. The fit and finish on this one is, it's kind of lost a little bit because I've used this knife so much, but when you first get it, it's got this really, really great orange peel texture, which has, it's remained, but it's kind of filled up with like kind of hand grime and stuff, just a little bit, so it kind of makes it look a little bit different over time. I'll show some up-close photos of it, perhaps. That's probably the easiest way to translate that to film. But yeah, the back of the handle and all the way around has this really, really nice mirror polish to it. It's one of those really kind of fancy effects that, I really appreciate when companies go that extra step for, especially when they're charging you this much money. It's probably why they're charging you this much money too, but there you go. And yeah, for a slab handle titanium, they have done a little bit of, chamfering and milling on it, so it's not just super simple basic like this Mantra here, for example, and this is about $100 less, and you do sort of see that. Whilst it's got the exact same elements, titanium M4, the Advocate just has a level of complexity that makes it, mostly just extra stuff for fit and finish or show and shine, but also it's a bigger knife too, and there's a few extra things going on there. It's got the trimmings to make it feel like, up there with like the zero tolerance kind of knives that have that little extra art stuff as well, but while remaining, ergonomic and, good in their pocket, good in the hand for prolonged and sustained use, which is what I've generally been doing with this guy. So very, very cool. Love the grinding as well. They've got a really nice machine finish, which I love for M4. M4 just is generally pretty difficult to get many other finishes on, I think. So often you just get it machine-like here, and then they've just kind of left it satin and I guess just whatever they do to polish that back or whatever on the others. So there is a bit of a differential, which is kind of nice as well. In terms of things I don't love, the lock here is a little bit awkward, so it's not the best. There's enough there to be able to access it, but still not enough to make it a comfortable access. And so a little bit of a thumb, you got to stick your fat of your thumb in there just a little bit to get that across. Once it's across and once it's loosened up, so this is loosened up really nicely for me because I've used it so much, but yeah, just when you first get it, you do notice, wow, that lock is a bit severe. So there's that. These are things that I like, I would barely bring up if the knife wasn't so expensive, but as I said, open season when they're this much money. And then the pocket clip is just the Paramilitary 2 pocket clip, which I'm a bit like, they could have done, a bit of a nicer clip maybe, or at least something that's deep carry or something, because this isn't a particularly deep carry knife. You get a fair bit sticking out of your pocket when you do wear it in pocket. So just something to be aware of too. I don't love the clip. I don't hate the clip. It's a super practical, super effective clip, but it is just the Para 2 clip. The tab here, I'm not too fussed about things being pocket peckers. I carry my pocket knife and my phone in my same pocket. My phone's got a case on it that makes it more or less immune to being pecked with rounded off bits of metal like this. Not too bad. So from that perspective, I don't mind it too much. It is a bit strange because I've obviously taken this effort to minimize the knife's height, and then they've gone and put a particularly long flipper out, which isn't really needed because the action on this one's great. You can do all of your, what are all these, there's these ways of saying these, like, they remind me of like yo-yo tricks and like, hey, can you do hey, it's walking the dog and light switching. So there's going from here down, there's loading or preloading the flipper tab. You don't need to do any of that stuff. It just does flip open really effortlessly. As I say that, it doesn't flip open. It does flip open more or less perfectly fine. Like, it's not as crazy snappy as some, but it's pretty damn good. So you don't really need like a super crazy long lever type tab. It would have done fine with a shorter one. And yeah, the only point that it really bugs me is that when I'm doing like board cutting, you see here, I'll lay it down flat and then I'll swivel it forwards. So it's like that. So you look at this empty space here. So from there to where the belly contacts, that's like kind of space that isn't getting used when you're cutting against a surface. So that's kind of where the longer flipper tab, that's where it sort of irritates me. If it was shorter, you'd probably get your usage starting about there. But that's only if you're doing lots of board cutting, which, hey, that is me because I do these insane rope cut tests, but not everyone is a complete, borderline robot like I am with my need for edge retention stats. So there you go. So that's the only other really negative thing or really like thing you need to know. So yeah, flipper tab, lock cutout, and pocket clip aren't my favorites, but everything else is pretty darn nice. The lockups, obviously the whole construction of it is really, really sound. Tai Chung make probably the nicest Spydercos, I think. Hey, just stop howling. Yes, Tai Chung make the nicest Spydercos, I think, in terms of fit and finish. It's just a really well done one. And yeah, with the retirement of some of those other really fancy Spydercos, it's probably one of the nicer ones going at the minute. The price is so much. So you can get this on Knife Center for $246 at the moment. The MSRP is $380, which is insane. Like, I wouldn't pay that. I'm not sure if I'd still pay US $250. That's about, by the time it's here in Australia, it's about $330. And I don't think the value is there for that. I don't know. If you ever see this on sale, I think it's a must buy. But really, if you're using it just for practical stuff, I mean, an S110V paramilitary is probably going to do just as well. It's probably going to be a little bit more comfortable in the hands and a little bit more comfortable at unlocking stuff. But if you're after something that's nice as well as about as practical as a paramilitary too, this is about as good as Spyderco's got at the moment. And it's definitely swinging with the zero tolerance and things like that. And it doesn't have any issues like there's no issues like that at all with the lock. Absolutely fine. So, and that's obviously not a specific problem that's on every ZT either, so there you go. Anyway, definitely swinging with the fancy knives. Apart from the pocket clip, which kind of stands out just a little bit, it's a really, really nice option from Spyderco. And yeah, I like pretty much everything about it. The handle choices, the design choices, the steel choices. Just a few things to know about that might affect your decision to pull the trigger on this one. But if you have the money and you like your higher profile knives and your higher end knives, then this is definitely a good one to grab from Spyderco. I'll see you in the next video, guys. Goodbye.
Time is an illusion that helps things make sense. So we are always living in the present tense. It seems unforgiving when a good thing ends. But you and I will always be back then. You and I will always be back then. Singing will happen, happening, happened. Will happen, happening, happened. And will happen again.